At the 26th August, Noel Stevenson and some other She-Ra crew members had yet another panel. Fans of the two canonically disabled characters, Entrapdak and Harassing, and their relationship, already braced themselves beforehand, because Stevenson had a tendency to mock said disabled characters, and also ignite fandom drama in other ways, which had led to increased harassment on the panel before already. I personally decided to take several days off of Twitter, which in hindsight was very, very wise to do, because nothing could have prepared us for the horror this panel would bring. Stevenson made a racist joke that hurt many black fans. Also, a Katrastan blew other things they said out of proportion, making it look like transphobia. But what large parts of the fandom found the most morally repulsive was that Stevenson had read out a mail from a disabled fan saying that they related to Entrapdak and Harassing, and that for them they are an amazing representation. Bullying and brutal harassment of the fans of these characters started. Disabled, neurotypical fans even had the nerve to call liking these, if villainous, mostly respectfully written disabled characters as ableist, weaponizing our own words for the oppression we face against us. That's right. In the eyes of most of the She-Ra fandom, being a disabled person relating to people like them is worse than actual racism. I'm Telly's greatest fan, a queer, autistic, and mentally ill writer and fan artist. Sorry that the paper is making sounds. I have points written out so that I don't just ramble. Okay. I wanted to make this video about this for a very long time, but it's a very painful topic for me. And also I'm afraid of harassment, since the She-Ra fandom is extremely aggressive. Surprise! It's extremely painful to remember just how many people don't see you as an actual person. And this experience is sadly not limited to autistic people or disabled people, but also people of color, bisexual people, asexual people, sometimes trans people too in this fandom. But I wanted to talk about the ableism because it hurts me the most. This video has two parts. The first part contains examples of the ableism disabled She-Ra fans face, trigger warnings for heavy ableism, hate, dehumanization, infantilization, and victim blaming. I will also make a second part, and it will be another video because making this, I just noticed that this will be very, very long, so making this one video would be just too long. And in the second part, me and other disabled fans will be talking about our experience. Which brings us to the Ableist comments. Most of them are old, but not because it stopped, but because my blocking skill just grew better. And I recommend Twitter blockchain for everybody who's on Twitter. It lets you block all followers of one troll with one click. Sadly, there is no such thing for Tumblr, but it's worse on Twitter anyway. So, yeah. Most of these examples are from Twitter because the harassment there is a lot worse than on Tumblr, but it's still existing on Tumblr. And I'm sorry if my voice will grow shaky or angry or sad, because this will be very, very painful for me. Please block these people. They are very malicious and very aggressive. If you have the spoons, report them for hateful content or what seems fitting. But please do not harass them. Harassment is wrong. and it's their method. We are better than this. So Entrapdak does not fit into the arbitrary idea of maturity this person has, despite behaving more adult than the princesses in other areas. So she deserves to have her rights taken away because she behaves autistic. This person means with this her right to make own decisions, her right to have relationships, and her right to be treated with respect. A group of people seen as unfit to make own decisions, so they have to be forced under the rule of a real people. That sounds familiar, does it? And this phenomena is called infantilization and prevents many autistic or otherwise disabled people in real life from being allowed autonomy. Also, another thing that is wrong about this treat is that Hordak isn't this abusive masculine figure oppressing Entrapdak. This person describes him, as seen in several scenes in Huntara, for example, the scene where Entrapdak shoves him against the wall and he just follows, somewhat dumbstruck. And Entrapdak is only not able to hold friendships because of bullies like the person who wrote this, and the princesses who mistreat her, don't take her as she is, and mock her. It's not her fault. It's victim blaming. Firstly, Hordak's age is never stated, but most fans who actually given attention to him think he's about Entrapdak's age or slightly older. And the assumption that only old people are physically disabled is quite ableist and also has its root in propaganda against disabled people, as far as I know. Also, it contains this idea that disabled people are disgusting and those should not be allowed to have sex, which is also quite dehumanizing and harmful. Yeah, I can't describe it any other way. There was also a blog of this I sadly couldn't find again, that noticed that words like shriveled and raisiny and falling apart and gross are words that are used to describe real-life physically disabled people. It's just a lot of body shaming and also a somewhat weird fixation on penises. You don't need one to have sex, and size is rather unimportant, as everybody who had ever had sex with a person having one can tell you. And skill and respect is much more important, which are both things Hordak has for Entrapdak. Also, it's Entrapdak. She had sex with a spaceship once. Somehow. I don't know how. Not sure if I want to know. So no matter how its genitals look, she will find a way to make it pleasurable for both of them. This treat is a good example of how they deal with valid arguments. Is this how they pronounce valid? Valid? I don't know. Sorry, English isn't my first language. Also, here we have infantilization again. And this person is basically saying, I know Entrapdak is 30, but I call her a child again because she's autistic, so she has the mind of a child, and also I need a rogue-sounding argument to harass real neurodivergent and disabled people without consequences. And saying that your heart is in the right place for harassing fans of a healthy, respectful ship between disabled people just because for you all autistic people are children. So you, a abled person, believe to know more about what is good representation than actual autistic people, and that you are in the right to harass them when they don't have the same opinion. As several black fans pointed out, Hordak isn't a colonizer. You need colonists and racial uniformity for that. He's a conqueror. It's a super gross mistake since Hordak's voice actor is a black man. And as said fans described too, black-coded in multiple ways. And yes, Hordak does bad stuff, but Entrapdak does it too. So here we have yet another instance of infantilization. And interestingly, Katra does the same things as Hordak and also abusing several people, yet nobody thinks that's an argument against shipping her or that she's a colonizer. You hypocrite. So that's how they react to unvalid criticism on how their behavior harms minorities. You just can't come through to that. As the other tweet says, comparing Hordak to a regime that works hard to murder people like him, disabled people, queer people, is just beyond disgusting. And yet they love to do that. It's also very immature behavior, and yet they complain that Entrapdak fans would behave wrong. You know what? You know you ended up in a bad fandom when the lead voice actor happily enables fandom harassment. Seriously, so much harassment came through this tweet. It contains the ableist idea that Entrapdak is emotionless and does not care and understand how much harm she causes. And Entrapdak wouldn't work for people who want to see her, a brown, bisexual, autistic woman, dead. She only worked for the Horde because they treated her with more respect than the princesses did. It also erases Entrapdak's brownness. Entrapdak isn't white. And this voice actor didn't care at all how much she would harm disabled fans, and she did, because aunties love to justify their behavior with this tweet and love to say that Hordak, a disabled, queer, probably black, and most likely heavily traumatized man, is like Trump. She actually did apologize, but only days later, and only after several disabled fans reached out. Also said fans were harassed afterwards. This experience in the fandom showed me very drastically that I, as an autistic person, am not welcome in this fandom. As both a German and a queer disabled person, aka someone who sorely would have been murdered by the Nazis, this is just so wrong on so many levels. Yes, the Horde is a military dictatorship, but it's not fascism. Usually these two things are linked, but there are many other forms of dictatorship, like communist, technocratic, religious fundamentalist. The Horde is just too diverse for fascism. It contains several species and ethnicities, people of all genders, queer people, disabled people, and interestingly, and that's a detail that many Entrapdak fans noticed, the Horde seems to be more welcome to disabled people than the kingdoms of the princesses seem to be. But that's just observation at... oh shit, I think this idiom doesn't exist in English. Side observation. But anyway, all people are welcome in the Horde as long as they are useful. Also, cultural warfare does not exist, just conquest. No examination camps. Many people interpret the scene with the Scorpion people like this, but Scorpia wouldn't live in a real genocide, so this could also be another situation. Adding to that, Hordek's motivation is different too. He's not wanting power, he wants to be accepted by his slave master. And now to the more horrific and disgusting part of the claim. This person claims someone of several groups the Nazis systematically murdered is like them. And I have a rule post about that. The link is in the description. So there was this concept of eugenics. You maybe don't know this, but because teachers love to gloss over this, I didn't know until I read it myself, and I'm German. And we Germans learn about the Nazis already in grade 4. They not just murdered Jewish people, but also Sinti and Roma, queer people, and yes, disabled people. They labeled them nicht lebenswert, which is translated to not worth living, as if murdering them were doing them a favor. They were murdered in slow, painful human experimentation, and they tested on them how to effectively kill large numbers of people, which later helped them in their genocide of the Jewish people. There are still influences in the general consciousness from this idea, in the way of how people or media talks about disabled people. For example, Autism Speaks, the hate organization calling autism a disease and wanting to cure and eradicate it. Or US states stopping caring for disabled, also mentally disabled corona patients to save resources for more worthy, healthy people. Entrapdak would have been murdered for being brown, being queer, being autistic. Hordek would have been murdered for being physically disabled and for not fitting into gender roles. Comparing him to someone responsible for genocide of people like him is beyond disgusting to not just the victims, but also disabled fans. And also he's a cartoon villain. A cartoon villain. This tweet is from the situation I described in the beginning. This person compares a disabled fan liking flawed characters to all these other objective bad things, and has the nerve to call that ableism, misusing a word meant to describe the oppression we face to harm us. It's just sadistic. Also, all except the thing about Bo are lies and twisting what actually happened, but that's not the point. The good old victim blaming. Perfumer abused and dehumanized Entrapdak, leashing her like a dog or a small child. were there were multiple ways to do this without dehumanizing, like talking to her. They did not try to understand and communicate with her. Holding her arm. Not this. Perfumer snapped at Entrapdak for Entrapdak being her autistic self. There was no attempt to understand. Not very understanding or calm. Entrapdak also this part with Entrapdak not understanding a ton of things. Entrapdak is smart. Actually explain to her and listen to why she acts like this. Because she has her reasons. And neurotypical ableists do that every single time when confronted with how disgusting the scene is. How they defend the abusers with the most elaborate excuses, but never the autistic person is very scary to me, to be honest. And it's disgusting that the Q thought this dehumanizing scene would be funny. The reaction to this clip and the victim blaming that followed made me really realize for the first time that I'm not welcome in this fandom and my voice is not heard in this fandom. Actually, Entrapdak can make her own decisions. And it's harmful to say that autistic people should not be allowed to make own decisions. Entrapdak is not naive and innocent. There is one scene where she literally says that she's aware of damage she causes, and that in cases where she isn't aware, she tries to find out the exact details, because that is what a good mad scientist does. Also, Hordak is not emotionless, and that's actually very obvious. And Entrapdak formed attachment over science and being like him, and him treating her with respect. He can't manipulate others if his life depends on it. So the friendship and romance with Entrapdak is genuine. Katra did dig into Entrapdak's insecurities and manipulated her, though. But somehow nobody mentions this. Forcing Entrapdak into ideas of how all autistic people are being naive and innocent and unaware, soft children who are in need of protection and control is very harmful, even coming from an autistic person. It's very sad when this happens, but autistic people can be ableists too. Again, saying Hordak is like people who murdered thousands like him is just disgusting. Also, this post shows very well how aggressive and rude they are. Lesbians are better than everybody else and can do nothing wrong is not a surprising statement coming from a known TERF. Seriously, this person is really horrible. Also in other areas, she's a transphobe, she's biphobic, she's aphobic, she's racist. If you have the energy, please report this person. If you were in the fandom, you might have heard about these two tweets because they were very well discussed. So these two speak over other disabled people. There is nothing wrong with villainship with sympathetic disabled characters. I mean, it's fiction. And as many other antis often do, you can also notice misuse of social justice terms to appear woke, because that's not what clustrator means. If you have the privilege to have the same opinions as able large accounts, please don't turn around and harm your fellow disabled people over a ship, because that's what you do. You think it can't get any worse than the lead voice actor being an ableist? Well, it can. The story behind this is that this emoji symbolize events in the new seasons, and Stevenson wrote publish it shortly before they dropped the new season. And Stevenson decided to symbolize Entrapdak with a dog on a leash. Entrapdak, a human, an adult human woman, a person, with a fucking dog on a leash. It's just very dehumanizing. Entrapdak is an actual person, not an animal. And there is a long history of autistic people being described as animals and not really human in order to justify abusing them. What makes this even grosser? Stevenson has bipolar disorder, which I have too, by the way, meaning that they are also neurodivergent, and they still decided to symbolize another neurodivergent person as a dog. How is it possible to be neurodivergent and still don't understand the oppression against you and humiliate and dehumanize fellow neurodivergent people? I just don't get it. According to this person, autistic people can't be smart enough to be eccentric geniuses. Only the freaks in the care units can be autistic. Seriously, this hurts to say, but this is exactly how they think. Also, here we have victim blaming again. That it is necessary to treat her like an animal. And this person has the nerve to find it funny seeing her abused and dehumanized, seeing autistic people abused and dehumanized, and it's also something that is necessary. And it also reminds me of these disgusting people on Tumblr and Twitter saying about bullying, but it was necessary because this person was behaving weird. Again, the misuse of the word ableism against disabled people. Entrapdak is a healthy ship between two disabled people. It's literally the antithesis to ableism. And yes, there are some small flaws, like both of them being villains, but overall, it's positive. This person put this stuff in the Entrapdak tag purposefully to harm those disabled fans. What you can't see in the screenshot is that afterwards this person called me and others a liar, saying most Entrapdak fans are disabled. Congratulated themselves on being so smart and blocked me before I could show them the pearl, saying that they are wrong and also harming disabled people. When faced with the fact that they are ableists, they don't even try to hide. They find it funny to write, "Normalized ableism." Imagine someone doing this about racism. And over 2,000 people think that's funny and okay. Do you understand why I feel unsafe in this fandom? Because it's okay to call an autistic person feral, because we are nothing more than animals. Who? This person, who, by the way, harassed Entrapdak fans multiple times in the past, says that Entrapdak is betraying the princesses, has no loyalty, is not sad that the princesses left her behind, and behaves too annoying and loud and chipper and should be more pleasing to neurotypicals. And then concludes that Entrapdak is a caricature. But that's not Entrapdak they describe. Why should she be loyal to people who abandon her? She was visibly very upset and broken over the princesses leaving her behind, and even basically trying to kill herself because of that on Beast Island. It's just not possible for some autistic people to please neurotypicals all the time, and Entrapdak tries and fails. She behaves differently with the princesses than with Hordak. That's a very harmful expectation. Even after saying they are autistic, they describe Entrapdak exactly as ableists describe her. Also, they gaslight other autistic people over Entrapdak's representation. It's always so sad and shocking when autistic people themselves are ableist. What happened that you hate others who are like you so much? The history behind this: someone wrote an article about the ableism, racism, biphobia, and other bigotry in the She-Ra fandom. And this Katra stan became so angry that that they harassed this person and friends, and also made an article about how nobody is allowed to relate to Hordak, how he is bad and Katra is perfect, and how Entrapdak fans are the ones to blame for the bullying and harassment they face. They ignore the harm to neurodiverse fans seeing their special interest repeatedly mocked and attacked. It's painful. And they continue to do that, even having repeatedly been explained that it's very painful for us. They refuse to do this really easy thing like censoring names, gloss over the ableism coming from their side, and trying to paint neurodiverse and disabled fans as irrational and asking for too much, and then blame Entrapdak fans for the harassment they receive. You might recognize this from interactions with other trolls and antis, but this is a classical abuser tactic called DAR-FIO. Sorry, I have problems with English pronunciations of letters, which stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It has the goal to make it impossible for the victim to hold the offender accountable. On the level of the series itself, they honestly claim that Hordak fighting back against his abuser means he is proud of his actions and a horrible person. Also, they erase Hordak's disability, his trauma, and Entrapdak's role in this, and victim blame Hordak. This tweet victim blames Entrapdak for Perfumer's dehumanizing treatment. Again, there were other options. They honestly call Perfumer abusing, insulting, and humiliating Entrapdak being a friend. Entrapdak is not just autism, weeks of, it's no waste. There's also much more hate against this part of the fandom, but it's not as blatantly ableist as this treat, so I didn't include that. There's a rule thread by Sorainus Sunshadow documenting these attacks. Naturally, the antis mock this thread and even go so far as labeling that recording the aggression coming from them would be bullying and meanness. Go look at it if you want. It's in the comments of this very thread. There even were people trying to convince her that suicide baiting, often of already mentally ill and traumatized people, is a harmless fun among kids. Often these attacks also include death threats or suicide baiting. There also has been an instance where an Entrapdak fan made a death threat to an anti, and while other fans called them out, death threats, suicide baiting and discrimination are wrong, no matter who does it. I still try to find our explanation to where all this hate comes from. Surely, one part of it is that this is systemic. Society is ableist as a rule, so this is learned behavior. Also, there is this observation that white-abled characters' humanity is never questioned, which enables them to be villains and people still love them, while non-white or disabled characters already are seen as flawed, so no sympathy for them if they are evil or morally grey. A linked observation is that it's easier to empathize with people similar to oneself. I try to leave her out of this because there is no winning in this fandom if not worshipping her, but sadly it's needed to understand the situation. Katra is very much like them. She's conventionally attractive, she is not too alien designed, she's a lesbian, she's abled. She might be a person of color, depending on the definition, but even that is very overlookable, unlike, for example, my Mr. Bo or Netossa. So she's very easily to relate. And yeah, she has also more screen time and a more sympathetic framing in comparison to Hordak and Entrapdak, thanks to being the showrunner's favorite character. But this does not explain the crass difference in treatment for fandom when they have very similar crimes and for the added abuse of several people. In comparison, Entrapdak is alien in way of thinking and acting to them through being autistic. She has a shrill voice, a strange way of moving through her hair. She's bisexual or pan. She's short and stocky and sharp-faced. She's a woman of color, and she's older than them. Though they don't seem to understand that. Hordak is even more different. He's gender non-conforming but male-appearing in most parts. Has an alien mindset through his upbringing in a cult. He's very, very alien-looking. He does not show his pain, but internalizes it. His age is unspecified, but most likely he's about Entrapdak's age. So older than them, and also he's visibly physically disabled, without armor. They are unable to empathize with people different than them. Maybe they are too young to be able? Because Entrapdak fans often are older while antis are very young, often use their status as a minor as a shield. It also kind of feels like this tactic of pitting minorities against each other to keep them from working together. I'm a lesbian and thus oppressed, but at least I'm not autistic. That's what it sounds like. So they are putting other minorities underneath them to feel better. You don't need to like Entrapdak or Hordek. These antis try to claim we say, if you don't like them, you are ableist, to discredit us. But in truth, it depends on the reasons, even if many of the reasons are indeed very ableist. Just be respectful to fans. Don't use ableist slurs and tropes. It's not that they dislike something is a bad thing, it's that the way they dislike it is ableist for the most. And also maybe try to challenge your own double standards and reasons for disliking them. The sad thing is that this doesn't stay in fandom, because people most likely treat real neurodivergent or disabled people like this too. And even if it would, it is still very painful and traumatizing to see how many people don't think you should be able to have relationships or don't deserve respect or all this stuff. And disabled people are often already traumatized before that because, well, society just sucks. I wish I had really good tactics, but the only tips I can give are recording the ableism and harassment, reporting it if it's possible, finding fans who are like you, and not trying to argue. They are too ignorant to make it possible for you to win, but just block them and instead making own positive content. There will also be a second part, but this will be another video because this one is already very long. I wish I could be more positive, but I hoped that this at least helps to know that it at least helps some people to know that they are not alone